Hey, it's Alex Williams of The New Stack. Welcome to The New Stack Makers, a podcast where we talk about application development, deployment, and management at scale. The Cloud Foundry Foundation is an independent nonprofit organization formed to sustain the development, promotion, and adoption of Cloud Foundry as the industry standard platform for cloud applications. Cloud Foundry is an application platform. It provides a choice of clouds, developer frameworks, and application services. Cloud Foundry makes it faster and easier to build, test, deploy, and scale applications. It's an open source project and is available through a variety of private cloud distributions and public cloud instances. Learn more at cloudfoundry.org. Hey, it's Alex Williams of The New Stack, and here today at the Cloud Foundry Summit in The Hague. And I am really excited for this interview. I have joining me Matthias Hub, IT project manager and prototyper at Porsche.
Hi, Alex. Great to be here.
Thank you for joining us. And Thorsten Türk-Steppe, product owner at Porsche.
Exactly, thanks.
Thank you very much for joining us. We were just talking about how the automobile really is a symbol of so much traditionally that we know about in terms of modern society, but it's increasingly a symbol of our future society too. How do you see that at Porsche?
Right. So Porsche is currently in a transformation from being a sports car manufacturer into a mobility provider. That means which is a very big difference, right? We want to provide mobility, very exclusive and sportive mobility, of course, as we are Porsche. But it also means Porsche needs to change internally a lot, and there's a lot of transformation. That's why I call it transformation internally ongoing to make the switch from a sports car manufacturer to a mobility provider. And mobility provider requires a completely different car, a much more connected car equipped with a lot of connected car services than just driving a 911 on a racetrack. So it's a very, very big change in transformation what we are currently in.
But it's still a car, and it's still a sports car. It's still Porsches are beautiful cars.
They are.
And so how do you retain that beauty in that connected experience as a mobility provider?
I mean, you've maybe just recognized the new launch of the Taycan recently in the last few days as a new electric car from Porsche.
Yes.
And even there, we extended our way of presenting mobility with a second display for the second passenger ride. So, and filling that with different services and applications, that's the change and the challenge we still have. Providing new features which are target-oriented and fulfill the premium quality requirements we have.
So the mobility company that Porsche is becoming requires a perspective about software that is new to almost anyone, and especially has ramifications for people who drive the cars, for the experience of that automobile, and that has to come through in the software development, doesn't it?
Absolutely, you're absolutely true. And so we have various kind of software which is created in that respect. Software that is running within a vehicle, software that is supporting mobility solutions, maybe consumed via mobile phone application, and also just some back-end production supporting software. So a lot of different kind of software which is to be developed but needs to be integrated and hopefully seamlessly integrated to provide this very round and sound mobility experience, absolutely. Actually, to drive that further, we in the Volkswagen Group created a separate brand, a software organization, as we found out that it is best not to develop software which runs in almost all vehicle, and it gets slowly commodity, right, is created in all the brands, but rather put and centralized in one central software brand, what we have now, which is then providing their software solution to the brands like Porsche or Audi or Volkswagen.
So you have the base communication given by that organization, so from the car to the back end to end, with the IT paradigm in the middle, let's say. And based on top of that, you can build the services differentiating the different brands and value for the customer.
I see. So this requires a different way of organizing product development, and it has to be both from a perspective of the executive management into the product, and then shifting the perspective to the developer. Tell me about when this started. How did Porsche get started along this journey?
I mean, there might be already a long time ago individual smaller projects who did that. But recently we've been involved in a bigger work stream. We call it an agile release stream with above 100 people building that software platform. And within that, you had an agile way of working with cross-function teams, including different partners and different brands, all together building the new software in an agile manner using modern technologies, let's say.
Right, and you were very right about support of the executive management. This is very much needed because it won't change anything if the executive management won't back it up. And so we have a thing called Agile at Porsche, which is this transformation initiative, which actually allows or forces or pushes us actually to transform our processes, to really change also the actual processes we are in. The automotive development process is very strict and stringent, right? It's a few years process, and you can say, if I started now, in 5-6 years from now, there will be a car out of it. But in software development, these cycles 5-6 years, this doesn't work out, right? So there is kind of what kind of software development processes like this agile development process need to be integrated at what stage in the hardware development process, which is very interesting because there's not one truth, but it's kind of iterating until the goal.
Maybe just to comment on that, make it simple by an example. If you have sensors and actors in the car, they are fixed at some certain point of production, so you can't change that. But building new services on top of existing functionality, combining that and making that productive, that's the challenge we have nowadays.
Because you talked about the hardware, which is really the automobile.
Right.
And so tell me then about how you've had to organize yourselves. I mean, we see developer teams have transformed a lot. Tell me about the teams that are working in the software development process. Like, what is your role in the team? Who are some of your team members? Are they all developers? Are they designers?
Right. So as Thorsten mentioned before, it's a cross-functional team. We were working together in that project, and this means developers from vehicle software components, as well as we represented more the cloud part of the software development part. They were working together also with some help from external partners, even to make it very diverse setup, to have a very diverse setup of roles, and not just have just one single kind of developer role in there. We believe that having a diverse team really results directly on better outcome, better software quality, better outcome of the product actually. So we are in a mixed team. So my personal role was more of prototyping stuff, trying out things more kind of in the research phase. And so I was working more on trying out new technology personally.
Yeah, and I have the pleasure to, in that project, being the product owner. and also continuing the journey with the user stories and bringing the value to the customer and presenting that at every product increment presentation every 3 months to our management. That's another way of being agile and making that visible. So, and also the management then influences your next 3-month schedule and say, I'm happy with the objectives you lined out, or I'm not happy and you need to change. So, and even things changed along our journey. So,
yeah, I imagine it changed quite a bit. So tell me then, talk to me about Cloud Foundry, and we're talking about at-scale development, right? How are you running cloud? Tell me about kind of the Cloud Foundry implementation that you've been developing. How many people do you have working on these projects? I mean, are you running Cloud Foundry on top of Kubernetes? Are you running it in other ways?
Yeah, let me start, and then Matthias will join in and add some more. I mean, the good thing is we at Porsche, we have the Volkswagen Group as a big partner in the back, let's say, and they are running a Cloud Foundry instance or even a farm for us with lots of service in the marketplace, which makes it easy for us to concentrate on delivering the business value. So from us, from a project perspective, we started with a small team in an incubator phase and then went on in a more serious-ready solution. And at that point of time, we integrated the first communication platform with, I think at max we were 20 people from onboard to offboard, including ourselves, so the different partners. So that worked out very well. And we did not have any hassle providing the infrastructure and ramping up until a certain point when we then recognized we need some more flexibility. And that's maybe where you can add a few words where Kubernetes jumped in.
Right. So we were, as Thorsten mentioned, using the Cloud Foundry installation provided by our Volkswagen colleagues who are doing the hosting and the management of the marketplace. And we were using very much the services also within the marketplace provided, data services and other messaging services. And at some point in time, especially when looking at the development of in-car software, we came to the conclusion we also need to simulate and test all these different vehicles. And at that point in time, we found Kubernetes very valuable because we could in-car software components put in a container, spin it up, and then interact with the components developed on Cloud Foundry to have an end-to-end test run or simulation run or also load test run in the end. So for us, Cloud Foundry was the base of the backend development, but for the simulation and testing, we use, for example, in our case, this Kubernetes to simulate these cars.
So Kubernetes is still fairly new, and Cloud Foundry is pretty well established for that push environment. So tell me about, an automobile is really like a computer, and the software needs to get updated, and you need to be continuously developing the software. How have you organized yourself to continuously deliver software to cars on the road?
Right. So we have a thing called Car for Life, which means this is not just and this also changed, right, in the last few years. So it's not, if it's produced, then it's out and we never see it. But now we have over-the-air updates, we have continuous adding applications for infotainment purposes and so on. And so it really changed, and the focus on one model, which is now coming out like the Taycan, changed into this lifelong relationship and updates of the car software. Yes. And that means a lot of restructuring in the organization, right? It's really a big change. If you, until a few years ago, you just have it produced and then it's basically out and just maintenance mode, right? But this is completely different now, right? It's not in maintenance mode, it's rather still adding functionality and pushing stuff up.
It always goes to some kind of container model or other models which allow you to update software frequently.
So tell me then about your technology stack and for the platform.
Right. So we having coined the term automotive cloud, right, which is kind of an extended IoT platform. And so we are using IoT technologies we announced the partnership with Microsoft on that, like the Azure IoT component in between, to just get the messaging up and running and use their platform for the connectivity. But on top of that, we have added functionality to provide great developer experience. And that is one thing I also, because I use Cloud Foundry a lot in my past, I wanted to bring over from the Cloud Foundry developer experience to developing future mobility services. I wanted to bring over this kind of very easy and flexible development experience without the burden of a lot of operational hassle. And so we have used that as a platform for the communication, but for the developers, we've created on top of it a set of APIs or mechanisms or paradigms, like, for example, resource-based communication or message-based communication on top of that, to have a very easy and simplified experience for developing this future mobility service in the vehicle, in the cloud, and also in the combination.
Imagine, that's what I would call the unified API experience from the talk we will also have here, is that the business value comes also from the time to market, that the API in the vehicle is stable and the API in the backend is stable, regardless of the communication platform I'm using. Because it might move even further, 5G is coming up, and other technologies might enable us to transport data even quicker than today. So how should we organize ourselves to leverage the benefit rather than to be stuck in technology stacks? So that's why we're choosing this kind of architecture here.
So one of the things that we find, at least at the New Stack, is that, we think we all understand that software is critical to business, right? And increasingly, software is open source.
Yeah.
How are you approaching open source? Where would you consider yourselves on that trajectory? We're about to release our open source survey results we did with the Linux Foundation. And one of the findings we have is like how important it is for recruitment, how important it is for culture.
Yeah.
But still, companies are not releasing a lot of projects quite yet. They're still using existing open source. I'm curious where you guys are.
So let me take that one. We have a very diverse set of developers in our team, and some are contributing to some open source projects. Interesting one thing comes to mind, which is, for example, Rocket Chat. We use, for example, Rocket Chat internally for providing support for the users of our Cloud Foundry installation, what we have. And we have a committer of a colleague who pushes out some Rocket Chat fixes or plugins, which we then can use internally. But this is something which we can easily just push upstream. Another thing is, in the vehicle, we are, of course, also using Linux more and more, and there is currently of more reluctance, right, to push things out of this kind of hardened Linux stack. But we are trying to push back the findings, what we have at least, to the community, but rather not publishing a new distro or something like that, but rather putting in very small pieces the contributions or comments or findings back to the community. So it's a very, very broad range. Where open source, what we use, we are also trying to contribute back and give back what we also use from the wealth of open source technology available. We also have specific open source offices in the Volkswagen Group, especially, which tries to foster that, but also clear out some legal hurdles, because it's
that's always a challenge.
It's automotive industry is about reducing risks. And risks means a lot with legal risks and all these things, and so trying to move that.
Fascinating times, and because I mean that continuous delivery requires that free flow of software to make it very fluid, doesn't it? And I guess my last question is, where do you go from here? I mean, what's on the horizon, for you as a mobility company and with software at the development at the core of it?
I think it continues to get more focused on the customer value, so that we concentrating on providing these services for the brand, but reducing the, let's say, the basement for general technologies like having a common platform which just do the transport is enough, but I can then focus on my business value on my customer. I think that's one thing which is definitely the focus from the brand side.
Continue. Yeah. So from the overall perspective, we are in the midst of the transformation, and we actually just started the agile transformation, and it will take quite a few years until we really can say we are an agile company, or we're delivering really a lot of the functionality in an agile way. And so it's really internally very challenging, and we are trying to find the best way and iterating over things and teams and structures and so on. So this is very interesting. Our North Star, or where we see us in the future, is absolutely to become a software-enabled company on Porsche level, but also on the Volkswagen Group level. And that's also already started with this new software organization, which is kind of a brand in our group now. And this is where actually it is heading on to use software which enables business cases. If we see changing from car manufacturer to mobility provider, a lot of new business models are like shared mobility and so on are on the horizon, and which is really things where we need to be flexible, change faster, fail faster, but also learn faster. And for that, I think the Cloud Foundry platform for prototyping as well as for production use turned out for us to be very valuable in terms of speed and reliability, and also the ecosystem of the marketplace. I think that's also one goal, is that the brands share their assets and their services through the, for example, Cloud Foundry marketplace, especially to bring it all forward.
Yeah, I could only underline that. So from our smart mobility project scope, where our team's working already agile in the application for the mobile app, let's say, in things like platform and services, where we currently were in there, as well to other business services, like all connectivity features, let's say, around the car.
So brand recognition must be important in the external community to show you're a software-friendly operation. Is it becoming a brand effort to actually kind of tell the story about Porsche and the Volkswagen Group as a place where developers have, an opportunity?
I mean, there's definitely there were recently a lot of public announcements around that automotive cloud initiative we have together with Microsoft, and that we are building up a lot of resources, and these are software developers. So, I mean, that's what you said at the beginning of the talk. The industry changed because the challenge is more to get connected, more autonomous driving and all that stuff, and that requires software, and therefore you need developers.
Right.
And again, so we experience it live for us with Cloud Foundry and Kubernetes in combination. This journey, it wouldn't happen otherwise in that quick or short period of time, I would say.
Well, fascinating stuff. Thank you so much both for your time. I'm really interested in following this and looking more underneath the hood, so to speak, at the software on in these cars and how it's being developed and built. So I've been joined by Matthias Hub and Thorsten Türk-Steppe. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having us. It was a pleasure to be here. Thanks,
Absolutely.
Alex.
The Cloud Foundry Foundation is an independent nonprofit organization formed to sustain the development, promotion, and adoption of Cloud Foundry as the industry standard platform for cloud applications. Cloud Foundry is an application platform. It provides a choice of clouds, developer frameworks, and application services. Cloud Foundry makes it faster and easier to build, test, deploy, and scale applications. It's an open source project and is available through a variety of private cloud distributions and public cloud instances. Learn more at cloudfoundry.org. Listen to more episodes of the New Stack Makers at thenewstack.io/podcasts. Please rate and review us on iTunes, like us on YouTube, and follow us on SoundCloud. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.